Hello, I'm Kim, and you're at Kim's Cozy Corner. And it is mid-December, and believe it or not, it's time for us to go ahead and start thinking about the 2024 garden. As I start thinking about my garden for the next year, and it's only December, there are a few things that I need to start purchasing to make sure I'm ready for that next season. And one of those things are my potatoes. I like to pre-order my potatoes so I can make sure I can get the varieties that I want when I want them and have them shipped to me when I want them. And so it's time for me to start thinking about what varieties I want for next year. But before I do that, I need to think about the potatoes that I grew this year and all the different varieties and how they did for me. Am I going back? Am I going to reorder them? Am I going to try something new? And so let's take a moment and talk about all of the different potatoes that we grew this year. Now, I purchased my potatoes from two different companies. And one of the companies I purchased Sapomir or Sharpomir, depending on where you're from. I purchased that particular variety as well as Prairie Blush. And so these are those two varieties that I purchased. They didn't do so well for me this year. The Sharpomir did okay. The potatoes were kind of small, and here's some pictures from my harvest of this year of my Sharpomir. Now, I have been trying to get my hands on that particular variety for years, and I thought I was going to get a much larger spud, but I didn't. And so I'm not going to purchase those for this upcoming year, but I will hold some back and use them as my seed potatoes for next year. So I'm not giving up, but I don't want to invest money in those. I'm going to just keep some of the potatoes to grow more next year. The Prairie Blush actually did okay. It was a decent sized potato, and I didn't buy many seed potatoes of the Prairie Blush. And it was okay. Wasn't my favorite. It wasn't one I didn't like, but it wasn't one that I was attracted to. It's not one that was, it wasn't my go-to. So we're not going to purchase that one next year. But if I have some of those potatoes left, we will definitely save some of those so we can keep trying at it next year. The primary place where I purchased my potatoes from was a place called the Maine Potato Lady. And so I'm putting that name out there because that's where we're going to purchase from this year coming up. So I've purchased from them now 2 years in a row. So this will be our third season purchasing their potatoes. And I got an email a couple of weeks ago saying it's time to start getting those orders in. And I like to put my order in early so I can be on the first round of those potatoes once they start shipping those out. So the main potato ladies that I planted in my 2023 garden included Old Faithful, Yukon Go. That's an old favorite. Yukon Go did okay in my garden. Yukon Go, I use them pretty much for everything. They're an early potato. The yields are decent on the Yukon Go, and the size of the Yukon Go are great as well. Another potato that I grew this year was a potato by the name of Purple Viking. And this was the second year that I grew that potato. And for the Purple Viking, a year ago, or in the 2022 season, I didn't get many potatoes. I really wanted it, but I think my seed potatoes were a little too old. I got them from a company I normally don't get potatoes from, but in 2023, my seed potatoes came from the Maine Potato Lady, and here's some pictures of those Purple Vikings. They had a beautiful color. The size was great as well. And I only purchased a few because I was worried because year one, they didn't do really well from the other vendor, but from the Maine Potato Lady, I think I got 1 pound. I mean, just a few potatoes, and they did amazing. Considering I didn't have many potatoes and the size of the potatoes, the shape, they did really well. So we definitely are going to do Purple Viking again. Purple Viking did well, and I'll probably hold a few back so I can start some up from from the 23 supply. Red Pontiac was another one, and it's kind of an old faithful. Red Pontiac, red potato. Here's some pictures from my harvest of the red Pontiac. And those are the type, and they're a late season potato. And I try to leave them in the ground as long as I can. And they said that the longer you leave them, they will get huge. Now, I didn't have any that were really, really too large. They were actually a good size red potato. They're good for everything. At least I think they're good for everything. And we'll definitely do that one again. And I'm very proud of the harvest this year. I produced enough potatoes to last my family for a year. Now, in order for them to last for a year, I'm having to change how I'm storing some of them because some of them had started coming up. They were developing eyes. So, of course, I cut those up and I canned those potatoes so that I can make sure I have a longer storage life on those potatoes. But we're not out of potatoes. It's December, and I definitely have enough potatoes to last me at least 3 more months. And I've already started some potatoes in my indoor grow space that should make up the difference if I start running short on the back half of the year. But I do believe it is a year's supply of potatoes. So let's get back to what I grew in 2023. I also grew, let's see what else, Lehi. Lehi, I've now grown for 2 years in a row. Last in 2022, it was my best producing potato. This year, it was on average on the higher end from a yield standpoint. The size of my Lehi were okay. Didn't get many pictures of my Lehi though, but here's a couple pictures that I was able to round up to show you. The Lehi potatoes are, I guess you'll say white skin or buff skin potato with a yellow flesh is what it says about the Lehi. And they're decent sized potatoes and they have a great taste. And storage is excellent on the Lehi. And so that is a favorite, and we will definitely do that one again next year. I also grew, for the first time ever, German Butterball. Now, I had heard German Butterball had one of the best taste out there, and that, it ran neck and neck with like a Yukon Go, just the taste, the texture, everything about it. So I wanted to give German Butterball a try. And I got a combination of things. I had some that didn't grow very well. I had one container that gave me so many potatoes, but they were all fairly small. And then I had another container that gave me some decent sized potatoes, but there weren't many in that container. And so the size of the potatoes are, I would say, a medium sized potato. They're smaller than I usually like. The taste was good, the texture was good, but the yield was kind of all over the place. So I don't think I'm going to purchase those next year. We will keep trying to grow them with the stash that I already have, but I don't think I will purchase those again next year. I also grew a russet potato, and the name of that potato was Rocky Mountain Russet. And I only had a couple containers of that one because I love a good russet potato. I want a bacon potato. I like the way they're fluffy. And I have really had pretty poor luck growing russet potatoes. I don't, maybe if I was doing raised bed or in-ground potatoes, I would get a better size of harvest or a better size potato. But I only do my potatoes in containers. And I had a couple decent ones in there, but nothing to write home about, if you know what I mean. So guess what? I'm going to give up on russets. If I need a nice size russet, I'm going to have to go to Costco or somewhere like that to pick it up. But I'm getting plenty of potatoes that are all-purpose potatoes, so they're good for baking as well. And so I only want to plant what I'm getting great yields off of. And so I don't want to waste that space because space is like gold. It's precious. And I don't want to waste that growing space, that growing time, if I'm going to get a poor yield. That's all that I grew this year. And as I think about what did really well, what didn't do so well, and I think about putting my order in for next year, and again, I want to grow as many of my own potatoes from this year's stock, right? So eventually I want to be self-sufficient where I'm not having to buy seed potatoes. But if I'm going to buy a seed potato, I want to make sure I'm buying seed potatoes that's going to add high yields to the harvest. I want to make sure that it has excellent storage as well. And the last, in my mind, most important thing is that I like to stagger the harvest. So I need some early season potatoes, mid-season, and late season. Since I want to stagger my harvest, I want to have a few potatoes that are early, a few are mid, and a few that are late season. Now, your early potatoes usually have a growth period of somewhere from 50 to roughly 70 days. A lot of people call those new potatoes. And so even though I'm putting all my potatoes in the ground at the same time in late spring, I want to harvest over a longer period of time so that I'm extending the harvest so everything's not going to come in at the same time. And then that way, my harvest will last me throughout the year. Now the sun wants to come out and mess up my video. Mid-season potatoes are 70 to 90 days, and then your late season potatoes are roughly 90 to 110, 120 days, like way out there. I want both what I call yellow flesh or white flesh potatoes with either a buff or yellow skin, and I want some red skin potatoes. So as I think about the different types, and there's so many different types of potatoes out there, but as I think about it, and I think about what do I want to grow next year, right? I'm going to definitely have to try some new things, maybe bring some things back from years ago. And, what are my old faithfuls? What am I going for this year? So I have picked out my potatoes that I'm going to order for next year. For my early potatoes, I'm going to do the Yukon Go. It's excellent storage. It's all-purpose potato, and it has a yellow flesh. There's the picture from the website where I'm going to be ordering from. The next early potato I'm going to do, so that's a yellow flesh potato. I'm going to do in a buff skin. I'm going to do some sangre. I might be pronouncing that wrong, but here's the picture of it. This will be the first time that I'm growing this potato. And it has a dark red skin and it has white flesh. And it is an early, all-purpose, excellent storage, high-yielding potato. So we're going to give it a try. Don't want to waste my space, so I need a high yield, and I also need excellent storage because I don't want to have to buy potatoes. For mid-season, Purple Viking's back in the numbers, back in the mix. I was very happy. So we're going to do Purple Viking. Again, it's excellent storage. It's a mid-season potato. It's good for baking. It's good for mashing. And it's a high-yielding potato. So we're going with the Purple Viking. We're also going to do the Kennebec. Kennebec is a very well-known potato. A lot of people grow Kennebec. And I grew Kennebec 2 years ago, and it did okay. I mean, it did really well. I used to grow it all the time before I found Lehi. Once I found Lehi, I didn't need the Kennebec anymore, but we're going to bring Kennebec back this year. Kennebec is an all-purpose potato as well. I'm trying to get more of the all-purpose in since I'm giving up on russets. And then the third mid-season potato I'm going to grow is called the Yukon Gem. So it sounds like it's off of the Yukon Gold, but it's excellent storage. It's supposed to have a higher yield than the traditional Yukon Gold, and it's mid-season. So excellent storage, mid-season, high yield. That's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for great taste. And so I'm going to assume it tastes very similar to the Yukon Go. And then we get into the late season potatoes. These are the ones that's got to bring it home for me every year in order to make sure that I'm going to get that supply that I'm looking for. And so my late potatoes, I'm doing my red Pontiacs. They are Old Faithful. I'm going to keep growing it. I'm always going to grow it. And that's my red skin potato. It's good for mashing. So, and we love mashed potatoes around here. We're going to do the Lehi. Again, Lehi is Old Faithful. It'll never go away at this point in time unless something drastically changes. So we're going to do Kennebec, which is mid-season, and then we're going to do Lehi, which is late season. And the Lehi is also excellent storage. And I'm going to be honest, it was some of the prettiest potatoes that I've ever grown. So Lehi is back, and I think that's it. So purple Viking, red Pontiac, Sangre, if I'm saying it correctly. So those are my three, I'm calling them red potatoes. The purple Viking is kind of a splash of reds and or purples and pinks, but those are my three red potatoes. And then we're going to also have Lehi, Kennebec, Yukon Gold, and Yukon Gem. So I am going to purchase actually a very small quantity this year. Last year I bought 5 pounds of multiple different kinds, and I planted 30 containers early in the season. And when I came back for my second planting, I got some kind of disease and the second planting didn't go so well. So I'm going to purchase a smaller number because I'm hoping to use more of my own potatoes for seed potatoes this year. But if you get your order in now up until I think the end of January or something like that, then you'll get your potatoes in the late March, early April shipping, depending on where you are in the country. So all of that has to come into play. But for me, I can have my potatoes by April, and I can have those in the ground ready to go so I can get a spring harvest as well as a harvest later in the season, as long as I don't get disease like I did this current year. Putting my order in this week from the main potato lady, and we will have our potatoes ready to go. We got our plan. We know what we're going to be planting. We know how many containers we have. We know how many potatoes are coming, so we don't have to think about potatoes until the spring because they are ready to go. I hope you liked the recap of my potatoes from the 2023 season. It was a good season. We had fun. The girls did quite a bit of the harvesting, and it's always digging for treasure when you're dealing with your potatoes. And if you want to get that spring planting in, get your potatoes early. That way you can get what you want before they become out of stock. If you enjoyed the video, thumbs up as always, please. Giving a thumbs up to the videos changes the algorithm and it helps the channel out a lot. And also subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. That way you'll know when I'm dropping new videos. Until next time, and as I always say, I hope to see you again soon. Bye.